Hey everyone. This is Six Path Weeb, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's fanfic topic is, what if Naruko could fuse with her shadow clones? Disclaimer, this content is purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any of the anime footage used, all rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Alright, let's dive in. The Hidden Leaf Village, one of the 5 great hidden villages and renowned as the strongest among them. The village is led by the Hokage, and throughout its history, there have been 4 Hokage. The 4th Hokage tragically lost their life during the attack of the 9-tailed fox, leading to the return of the 3rd Hokage to power. Naruko, a 6-year-old girl, lived in the Hidden Leaf Village. Despite her young age, life had been incredibly difficult for her, and she couldn't understand why. The villagers would glare at her, whisper behind her back, and some even chased her away. She had learned to avoid crowded areas, hoping to escape their cold stares and harsh words. They called her names, fox and monster, but she didn't understand why. What had she done to deserve such treatment? Was she really what they said she was? One evening, Naruko was forced to leave the only place she had ever called home. She had lived in an orphanage, though even there, she was not welcome. The only solace she found was in the library, where she could read in peace. Books became her greatest companions, they never judged her, never pushed her away. She immersed herself in them, learning as much as she could. But now, with nowhere to go, she wandered the village alone, unsure of what to do next. For over a year, she had successfully avoided most of the villagers, but now that she had no shelter, she had no choice but to be out in the open. Meanwhile, the villagers began to take notice. Many whispered amongst themselves, wondering what had happened to the demon girl. Some assumed someone had dealt with her, and they felt no remorse at the thought. After all, they blamed her for the 4th Hokage's passing. Word of her absence soon reached the 3rd Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Though he was aware of the villagers' hostility, he had hoped that placing her in the orphanage would provide some stability in her life. Now, however, he was deeply concerned. Had he made the right choice? Kenzo, summon the Anbu assigned to watch over Naruko. I need a full report immediately, Hiruzen ordered. With a nod, Tenzo vanished to carry out the request. Elsewhere, Naruko curled up in an alleyway, trying to find a comfortable spot to rest. The Anbu who had been secretly watching over her could do nothing but observe. Their orders were clear, they were to protect her only if an external threat emerged. As they stood in silence, Tenzo arrived. With a simple signal, they all disappeared, heading toward the Hokage's office. Standing before Hiruzen, the Anbu delivered their report. Naruko has been expelled from the orphanage, one of them stated, their voice tinged with sorrow. She is currently searching for shelter. Though Hiruzen's expression remained composed, the air around him grew heavy with restrained emotion. His mere presence exuded such intensity that any shinobi of lesser rank would have struggled to remain standing. Take me to her, he commanded. Moments later, Hiruzen arrived at the alley where Naruko lay on the cold ground, surrounded by discarded waste. The air was damp, and the night was uncomfortably chilly. His heart ached at the sight of her. Holding back his emotions, he stepped forward. What happened, Naruko? He asked gently. Startled, she looked up, but upon realizing it was the Hokage, relief washed over her. He was one of the few people who didn't treat her with hostility. I was kicked out, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. And I don't even know why. A sad expression crossed her face before she continued, why do they treat me like this? I never did anything to them. Hiruzen clenched his fists but quickly regained his composure. Come with me, Naruko. You shouldn't have to sleep out here, he said, kneeling down before picking her up. In a swift motion, they vanished, reappearing moments later at Hiruzen's residence. You can stay here for the night, he told her kindly. Exhausted, Naruko barely had the strength to respond. As soon as she lay down, she drifted into a deep sleep. Meanwhile, back in his office, Hiruzen contemplated his next course of action. The staff at the orphanage had shown an unacceptable lack of compassion. He decided to remove them from their positions and appoint more responsible caretakers in their place. However, there was another pressing matter, Naruko's long-term living arrangements. Leaving her alone in an apartment at such a young age seemed unwise. But even if she stayed at his home, she would often be alone due to his duties. Letting out a sigh, he resolved to speak with her in the morning and see what she wanted. The next day, Naruko woke up, momentarily disoriented before remembering where she was. As she sat up, Hiruzen entered with a warm meal. After she finished eating, he gently began, Naruko. But before he could finish, She spoke first, sadness evident in her eyes. "Why does everyone hate me?" she asked, looking up at him. "They call me a monster. A fox. They shout at me and chase me away, but I don't know why." Hiruzen felt a pang of sorrow. No child should have to endure such cruelty. He knew the truth but also knew she was too young to fully understand. "Naruko, don't listen to their words," he said reassuringly. "You are a kind and strong young girl. And I know you want to become a shinobi, right?" Naruko's eyes lit up at the mention of her dream. She had read about legendary warriors, the Hokage, in particular. The fourth Hokage was her favorite, a hero who had single-handedly defeated 1,000 enemy shinobi and protected the village with unwavering courage. Despite the way she was treated, she still admired the hidden leaf and its history. "Will you train me, Gigi?" she asked eagerly. Hiruzen chuckled. "I would love to, but my duties keep me very busy," he admitted. "However," Naruko leaned forward, waiting in anticipation. "I can assign someone special to train you," he continued, watching her excitement grow. "A truly skilled teacher." Her face lit up once again. "Really? That sounds amazing." But there was still one matter to discuss, her living situation. "Naruko, since you don't have a home anymore, you have two options. You can stay here with me, or I can provide you with your own apartment," he said. Naruko thought for a moment. While staying with Hiruzen was tempting, she knew he was always busy. Living on her own would help her become independent. "I think I should live on my own, Gigi," she decided confidently. "It'll help me learn to take care of myself." Hiruzen smiled proudly. "Very well. Your new home is ready. I'll take you there now." With that, he carried her to her new apartment. Upon arrival, Naruko took in the space, simple, yet perfect. It had a small kitchen, a bedroom, a living area, and a bathroom. The kitchen was stocked with food, and on the counter, she noticed a beginner's guide to cooking. She grinned. The bedroom had only a bed and a nightstand, but that was all she needed. The living room had a couch, a coffee table, and even a bookshelf filled with books. "This is amazing, Gigi," she exclaimed, her eyes shining with happiness. Hiruzen chuckled. "I'm glad you like it. I'll provide you with an allowance every month, but be mindful of how you spend it. Also, tomorrow morning at 7, go to Training Ground 7. That's where you'll meet your instructor." Naruko nodded enthusiastically. "I'll be the strongest ninja ever," she declared. With a full day to settle in and prepare for her training, Naruko couldn't wait to begin her journey. Even though she had never officially trained as a ninja before, she was determined to give it her all. Tomorrow marked the beginning of a new chapter in her life. It was 6 a.m., and Naruko woke up feeling excited for her first day of training. Her grandfather figure had told her that her sensei was going to be amazing, which only added to her enthusiasm. She quickly got up and prepared breakfast, instant ramen she had bought the day before. Since she hadn't yet mastered cooking, instant ramen was the best she could manage for now. After finishing her meal, she stepped outside. "I should get some quick exercises in before training begins," she thought. With that in mind, she headed out. At exactly 7 a.m., Naruko arrived at Training Ground 7, just as someone appeared in a swift blur. At first glance, she could tell the individual was an Anbu and that they possessed remarkable strength. It was something she instinctively recognized. "Good morning. I'm your sensei," the Anbu greeted warmly. Naruko observed her sensei carefully. She returned the greeting and introduced herself. The Anbu wore a fox-patterned mask, had brown spiky hair, and dressed in standard Anbu attire. That was all she could gather about him for now. His name was Tenzo, but she simply called him sensei. The day's training primarily focused on chakra control. Tenzo decided to limit strenuous physical exercises so as not to hinder Naruko's natural growth. One thing he quickly noticed was that despite having an unusually vast chakra reserve for a 6-year-old, Naruko's chakra control was surprisingly refined. Typically, individuals with high chakra levels struggled with control, but Naruko defied that norm. Tenzo began by teaching her the 3 fundamental jutsu taught at the academy: the clone technique, the substitution jutsu, and the transformation jutsu. While it took her some time to grasp these techniques, she eventually mastered them within a week. Since she had successfully learned the basic clone technique, Tenzo decided it was time to introduce her to the Shadow Clone Jutsu, an enhanced and more tangible version of the standard clone technique. Given Naruko's enormous chakra reserves, he was confident she could handle it. 4 years later. Naruko was now 10 years old, and her progress over the years had been remarkable. She had also joined the academy, though she found it somewhat unchallenging. Most of the material being taught was already familiar to her. The only part she genuinely enjoyed was taijutsu training, as she had not received much of it from her sensei. Despite finding the academy dull, she didn't particularly mind it. The instructors treated her fairly, showing no hostility. Her classmates were generally fine as well, except for Sasuke and his group of admirers. She found it puzzling how he attracted so much attention despite barely engaging with anyone. What's so special about him, anyway? She often wondered. Interestingly, Naruko had admirers of her own, though she remained blissfully unaware of them. Naruko had snow-white hair and striking sky-blue eyes. She usually wore a sleek black tracksuit with the Uzumaki symbol on the back. In class, she was mostly reserved, only speaking when necessary or when interacting with her close friends, Shikamaru and Choji. The teachers appreciated her diligence and good grades, as she never caused trouble. However, she never showcased her full potential, preferring to hold back and maintain an average performance, for now. Training with an Onbu came with undeniable benefits. Over the past few years, Naruko's skills had grown significantly. Today was an especially exciting day for her. It was time to determine her chakra nature. She had also learned the body flicker jutsu but had yet to perfect its execution. As always, she arrived at the training ground early to complete her usual warm-up exercises before Tenzo arrived. A solid 30 minutes of exercise before training had become a habit, and she found it beneficial. Tenzo arrived, carrying a chakra induction paper, a special type of paper crafted from a unique tree. The moment Naruko saw it, her excitement soared. After exchanging greetings, Tenzo explained, "All right, Naruko. This is a special paper that reacts to chakra and reveals your elemental affinity. If it burns to ash, your affinity is fire. If it splits in two, it's wind. If it wrinkles, it's lightning. If it crumbles into dirt, it's earth. And if it becomes damp, it's water." Naruko nodded, already familiar with the process. Taking the paper, she channeled her chakra into it. The results were astonishing. The paper split in two, with one half crumbling away and the other wrinkling. Tenzo's eyes widened in surprise. 3 affinities. That's quite rare. Even most jonin typically have only 2. This is impressive, Naruko, he said, smiling with pride. Since you've discovered your chakra nature today, I'm giving you the rest of the day off. The next few years won't be easy, so enjoy the break, Tenzo added before vanishing in a swirl of leaves. Feeling accomplished, Naruko decided to treat herself to a well-deserved bowl of ramen. It had been a while since she last visited her favorite ramen stand. "Yo, Tucci. A miso sheshu pork ramen, please," she called out as she arrived at Ichiraku Ramen. The shop owner, Tucci, turned around, recognizing her immediately. "Naruko. It's been a while. How have you been?" he asked, pleasantly surprised. I've been training," Naruko said proudly, rubbing the back of her head. Tucci chuckled. "I see. Well, this one's on the house." "Thank you." Naruko beamed, eagerly waiting for her meal. After finishing her ramen, Naruko returned home. She picked up a book to read but soon found herself growing restless. With her friends occupied with their own training, she had little to do. "Training is the only thing on my mind right now," she thought. Determined to make the most of her free time, she decided to intensify her physical training. Until now, she had only done minimal conditioning, but she wanted to improve her speed and strength. She had been pondering an idea for a while, one she had pieced together from small hints dropped by Tenzo. The secret of shadow clones. With her vast chakra reserves, she was confident that she could utilize the technique to its fullest potential. "If I can use shadow clones efficiently, I can train multiple skills at once," she realized. Excited by this revelation, she made a mental note to incorporate it into her training. If there was any way to accelerate her growth, she would take full advantage of it. And with that, she set off to train once more. Naruko returned home feeling completely drained from her training. It was the most intense physical workout she had ever done, leaving her exhausted. However, her fatigue quickly faded when she remembered the excitement awaiting her. Tomorrow, she would finally begin learning advanced battle techniques. Up until now, her focus had been on refining her chakra control and mastering the 4 fundamental jutsus. Her chakra control was remarkably advanced, especially considering the vast reserves of energy she possessed. She had already perfected the shadow clone jutsu, transformation jutsu, and substitution jutsu. However, she was still struggling with the body flicker jutsu. Despite being a D-rank technique, it was more intricate than the others she had learned. Still, she was determined to master it within the next 2 years. As she rested, Her shadow clones took over the task of preparing dinner. Though they shared her reluctance for chores, they carried out their duties diligently. Soon, a warm and nourishing meal was ready. After eating quickly, Naruko wasted no time in getting to bed, falling asleep almost instantly. As usual, she woke up at 6 a.m. and went through her morning routine. She brushed her teeth, washed her face, changed into fresh clothes, and ate breakfast. By 6:30 a.m., she had left the house, heading straight to the training grounds. Her routine remained the same every day. At first, it had seemed tedious, but over time, she had grown accustomed to it. Right on time, at 7 a.m., her instructor, Tenzo, arrived, prepared for their training session. "Good morning, Naruko. I hope you're ready for today's lesson," he greeted her. "Good morning, Sensei. Of course, I am," she responded, her excitement evident. Just as Tenzo was about to begin, Naruko eagerly interrupted. "Sensei, I have an idea for my training," she said enthusiastically. "Oh?" Tenzo replied, already suspecting what she had in mind. "I want to use my shadow clones for training. If I create a large number of them, they can practice different jutsus while I focus on improving my taijutsu. What do you think?" she asked eagerly. Tenzo smiled. "It's great that you've realized this. Over the past few years, we haven't dedicated enough time to your taijutsu. Spending the next 2 years refining it is a solid plan." However, he paused for a moment, considering the implications. While it was true that a dispelled shadow clone transferred its experiences back to the original, no one had ever extensively used them for training. He decided to ask, "Have you tested how effective this method is?" "Yes, I have. I used them to learn new skills while training. For instance, cooking. I'm not an expert yet, but I've improved," Naruko explained. She hesitated briefly before continuing. "That said, my clones find it a bit more difficult to grasp entirely new techniques that I haven't attempted before." Tenzo pondered the idea. "If that's the case, why do you think using them for training is beneficial?" "Even though they might not master jutsus as quickly as I do, they help me train multiple skills at once. So while I focus on taijutsu for the next 2 years, my clones can steadily advance in their jutsu training," Naruko explained. Tenzo nodded, impressed by her reasoning. "That's an excellent approach, Naruko." He then performed a series of hand seals, creating a clone, not an ordinary one, but a wood-style clone. Unlike standard shadow clones, this one appeared far more durable. "All right then. I will personally oversee your taijutsu training, while my clone assists your shadow clones with their ninjutsu practice." Naruko nodded in agreement and quickly created 60 shadow clones, dividing them into 3 groups of 20. Each group was further split into 2 smaller teams of 10, making a total of 6 groups, each dedicated to learning a different jutsu. Tenzo's clone provided them with guidance before letting them continue practicing independently. Meanwhile, Tenzo introduced a new challenge for Naruko, training with weighted chakra bands. He started small, adding just 5 kilograms to her body. The additional weight made movement significantly harder, but she adapted quickly. His instructions were clear: she was to continue training with the weights for the next 2 years, gradually increasing them every few days or weeks. The first sparring session wasn't too difficult, she had adjusted to the 5-kilogram load. However, the next day proved more challenging. Adding just 2.5 kilograms didn't seem like much at first, but the combined weight pushed her endurance to its limits. Thankfully, her years of rigorous exercises had prepared her well. She sparred with Tenzo for hours. While he remained composed, Naruko was quickly reaching her limits. Still, she persevered, refusing to give up. As time passed, her muscles ached, her limbs grew heavier, and her breath became labored. Seeing her struggle, Tenzo decided it was time for a break. "Looks like we may have pushed a bit too hard today. Rest for a while," he said. Without a word, Naruko walked over to a nearby tree, took a sip of water, and lay down to recover. The air was calm and pleasantly warm, the sound of rustling leaves and chirping birds filling the atmosphere. Everything felt so peaceful that she drifted off into a deep sleep. An hour later, Tenzo approached, noticing she was still resting. He hesitated for a moment, but then gently tapped her shoulder. "Naruko, wake up. You might catch a cold if you stay out here too long." Naruko slowly opened her eyes, looking around as she regained her senses. "How long was I asleep?" she asked. "For about an hour," Tenzo replied. "An hour? Do you know how much training I could have done in that time?" Naruko exclaimed, quickly standing up. "Naruko, calm down. You wouldn't have been able to train anyway, considering your body was in." Tenzo stopped mid-sentence, surprised by how well she had recovered. The Kyuubi? I knew she had impressive healing abilities, but this is remarkable, he thought. What? Naruko asked, noticing his expression. Nothing, Tenzo said with a chuckle. Come on, stop slacking off. Let's get back to training. Continuous training and growth. After a few minutes of sparring, Tenzo observed her closely. So just an hour of rest completely restored her? The soreness, the fatigue, gone? This might actually help her body improve even faster. Every day, Naruko trained with Tenzo, and her combat skills steadily improved. She became more strategic in her thinking, capable of predicting her opponent's movements and reacting accordingly. Her speed, however, was the most impressive. At such a young age, she was already showing exceptional agility. At this rate, she's going to become an extraordinary ninja, Tenzo thought. By the end of the week, Naruko increased the chakra-enhanced weights on her body to 10 kilograms, gradually increasing them day by day. Moving with them was challenging, and she had to wear them at all times. After the first week, she maintained the weight level for a while before deciding whether to increase it by half a kilogram, 1 kilogram, or more, depending on her progress. Her advanced healing abilities made a significant difference. Even after exhausting herself completely, she would usually be fully recovered by the next day, unless she pushed herself too far, in which case she would have to rest. A simple solution to a big problem. One challenge Naruko faced was shopping. Many villagers still treated her coldly, making it difficult to buy even the simplest necessities. If she so much as glanced at an item, store owners would rush to push her out. However, she quickly found a solution, using the transformation jutsu to disguise herself as an ordinary civilian. Before implementing this plan, she made sure to ask the Hokage for permission. He allowed it as long as she didn't misuse the technique or cause trouble. Discovering hidden potential. During her years of training, Naruko realized she had innate sensory abilities. She had possessed them since childhood, but they had been unconscious, so she never noticed. Looking back, she recalled sensing how strong her sensei was the first time they met. However, controlling this ability it will remain a challenge. She attempted to activate it multiple times but hadn't succeeded yet. Curious about sealing techniques, Naruko decided to explore them, inspired by her favorite Hokage, the fourth Hokage, who was a master in the field. She found the subject fascinating and realized that sealing techniques were incredibly versatile. However, she eventually concluded that they didn't align well with her fighting style. Though a bit disappointed, she reminded herself that she didn't need to master everything the fourth Hokage could do. Her goal was to surpass all previous Hokage in her own way. But first, she needed to become a full-fledged shinobi, someone who could fulfill her responsibilities with dedication. Steady progress. Weeks passed since the intense training had begun. At the end of each day, Naruko dispelled her shadow clones, absorbing all the knowledge they had gathered. Her ninjutsu training was going even better than expected. During elemental training, she discovered something interesting. While she possessed 3 affinities, wind, earth, and lightning, her wind chakra was slightly stronger than the other 2. The difference wasn't drastic, but it was noticeable. If I keep going at this pace, I'll definitely master these jutsu by the end of the second year, Naruko thought, feeling motivated. Day by day, she was improving. Even on her designated rest days, she continued light training by slightly reducing the weight of her chakra restraints. However, moving with them still remained a challenge. But this was her life now, she had to adapt. Experimenting with lightning release. After weeks of training, Naruko had an idea related to lightning release. She wasn't sure if it would work, but Tenzo acknowledged that there was a chance. To test it, she adjusted her training routine, creating 40 shadow clones for wind and earth training, while dedicating 30 clones solely to lightning. She was also developing a new jutsu, a variant of an existing technique. While not as powerful as the original, it still had its own advantages. Weaker, maybe, but still incredibly useful, Naruko thought. Achievements and challenges. Months passed, and Naruko's taijutsu and physical conditioning improved dramatically. She was proud of her progress. Among her elemental affinities, wind was the easiest to master. Earth wasn't too difficult either, but lightning proved to be the most challenging. Whenever she encountered an obstacle in lightning techniques, she had no one to ask for guidance. Her sensei was proficient in earth techniques, and he had connections with skilled wind users who could help, but when it came to lightning, there was no one in the village available to assist. Despite the difficulties, Naruko was glad she chose to focus on lightning release. The challenge only fueled her determination. No matter how tough it was, she was committed to mastering every aspect of her training and proving her worth. Naruko's progress in taijutsu had advanced significantly. She had become more adept at predicting her opponent's movements and reacting swiftly, thanks to the physical conditioning she had undergone. It had been 2 months since she began training, with only one rest day per week. However, today unfolded in a way she had not anticipated. Naruko and Tenzo had just finished sparring. "Well done, Naruko. Your ability to react to my attacks has improved once again," Tenzo said with a smile, pleased with her steady progress. "Thank you, sensei. Shall we continue after a short break?" Naruko asked, still catching her breath. To her surprise, Tenzo shook his head. "No, Naruko. This time, I want you to take a longer break. I was thinking of giving you a full week off." Naruko's eyes widened in shock. She was accustomed to taking a day off every week or two, but an entire week? "But why?" she questioned, puzzled by his suggestion. Tenzo responded with a thoughtful expression. "When was the last time you spent time with your friends outside of school?" Naruko paused, realizing the truth in his words. It had been quite a while since she had seen her friends outside of class. Although she spoke with them at school, her intense training schedule had left little room for socializing. She remained silent. "You're very dedicated to your training, which is admirable. However, it's just as important to maintain your friendships. Take this time to relax and reconnect. We'll resume training in 5 days. Enjoy your break, Naruko," Tenzo said before vanishing. Naruko let out a small sigh. "Well, I guess he has a point. I haven't played with them in a while." Determined to make the most of her time off, she decided to visit her friends. First, she went to see Kiba, but he was busy training as well. Though a bit loud and energetic, Kiba was a good friend, one of the few who had always been kind to her. Naruko admired his dedication to getting stronger. Next, she considered visiting Shino. He was a quiet and reserved person, and they didn't talk much. Although Naruko thought he was cool, she often found it difficult to read his emotions. Sometimes, she wondered if she was bothering him, but she was never entirely sure. Unfortunately, she couldn't find him anywhere. "I guess that's what happens when I try to meet up with friends on such short notice," Naruko thought. She then decided to check if Choji was free. Choji was always kind and generous, often sharing his snacks with her, which she really appreciated. On her way to his house, she spotted him heading toward a barbecue restaurant with his father. Knowing how much Choji loved food, Naruko figured it was best not to interrupt their meal. "That leaves Shikamaru," she mused. Shikamaru and Choji were her first real friends, and through them, she had met other wonderful people. Though her friend circle wasn't large, she cherished them deeply. Unlike the others, Shikamaru was different, laid back and often muttering about things being troublesome, but a good friend nonetheless. As she approached Shikamaru's house, she spotted him playing shogi with his father. Seeing that everyone was busy, Naruko felt a little disappointed but understood the situation. Just as she was about to leave, Shikamaru noticed her. "Hey, Naruko," he called out in a relaxed tone. Turning around, Naruko walked toward them. "Yo, Shikamaru. I have some time off, so I thought we could hang out," she said, her voice slightly subdued. Shikamaru glanced at the shogi board. "Well, I'm in the middle of a game right now. Want to join?" Naruko hesitated. "I don't know. I've never played before." As they conversed, Shikaku observed quietly. He had met Naruko a few times before and was aware that she was training with an onbu, which meant she had to be quite skilled. Her black tracksuit, blue eyes, and white hair gave off different impressions each time. Sometimes she appeared laid back and uninterested, while other times she exuded confidence and strength. It was intriguing. Noticing the friendly dynamic between his son and Naruko, Shikaku stood up and headed toward the door. "Well, you two enjoy yourselves," he said before leaving. "So, you've never played shogi before, right? Want me to teach you?" Shikamaru offered, though he wasn't particularly eager to teach since he preferred taking it easy. "I'm not sure. It looks like a complicated game. How about we go for a walk instead? Maybe play something outside?" "It's been a while," Naruko suggested. Shikamaru sighed in relief. While going out was a bit of a hassle, teaching someone a game from scratch would have been even more exhausting. He silently thanked Naruko for choosing an alternative. "Fine, let's go," he agreed. "In just 2 years, we'll finally be real shinobi. I can't wait," Naruko said with excitement. "Yeah. You've been training a lot, huh?" Shikamaru responded. "Of course. I'm going to be the strongest shinobi," Naruko said with a bright grin. "Ugh, troublesome. Seriously, where do you get all that energy?" Shikamaru asked in a dry tone. "Hee hee, You should try harder, you know? I bet you could get even stronger, Naruko encouraged. I'm already trying hard enough, Shikamaru muttered. As they made their way toward the park, they spotted a lone Uchiha sitting by himself. Naruko had tried speaking with him before, but he always ignored her. She felt bad about what had happened to him and even sensed a certain connection between them. At the same time, his distant attitude frustrated her. Naruko and Sasuke made eye contact, but he quickly turned away and muttered, "Leave me alone." Naruko felt a wave of irritation but wasn't sure why. Normally, she wasn't easily annoyed. Instead of reacting, she simply ignored him and continued walking with Shikamaru toward the park. Shikamaru, as usual, kept his gaze either down or up, avoiding eye contact with others. "What do you think of him, Shikamaru?" Naruko asked. "I don't know. What happened to him was tragic, so I guess his behavior makes sense. But personally, I'd rather not get involved," Shikamaru replied. "Yeah, that sounds like you," Naruko said with a chuckle. Naruko understood what it was like to be alone. She wanted to help Sasuke, but he continued to push her away. At the academy, Naruko was usually quiet and only spoke when necessary. She often sat next to Shikamaru, Choji, Kiba, or sometimes Shino. Occasionally, she would try sitting near Sasuke to get him to talk, but that was nearly impossible, especially with the overwhelming attention from his admirers. Shikamaru, however, had noticed that Naruko had a few admirers of her own. He always wondered how she remained so unaware of them. As the hours passed and the sun began to set, Shikamaru had to hurry home before his mother scolded him, leaving Naruko to walk back alone. On her way, she saw Sasuke again, staring at the river. She wondered what was on his mind since he rarely spoke. Walking up to him, she greeted him, but received no reply. "What are you doing here?" she asked again. Still, no response. She felt a tinge of frustration. "I asked you something," she repeated, this time prompting a reaction. "What do you want?" Sasuke muttered. "Nothing. Just wanted to check on you. You know, talking is always better than staying silent," Naruko said, her voice softer. Sasuke glanced at her briefly before looking down. "I don't want to talk. Just go away," he said, his tone sharper, as if trying to push her away. "Why not? I know what it's like to be alone. And talking with friends always helped me," Naruko reasoned. "You don't know anything?" Sasuke replied. "Huh? I don't know anything? Listen, isolating yourself won't help. But sure, if that's what you think," Naruko sighed, shaking her head as she turned to leave. "Why did I even bother?" she thought. "I'll just go home and eat dinner." Sasuke remained by the river, thinking about Naruko's words before quickly dismissing them. "No one understands how I feel. I have to get stronger on my own. My only goal is to seek justice." Meanwhile, Naruko arrived home and started preparing dinner. She summoned 2 shadow clones to handle the cooking while she lay in her room, staring at the ceiling. She didn't want Sasuke to go through this alone, but if he refused to talk, she wasn't sure what else she could do. When she was alone, all she had ever wanted was someone to talk to. Maybe she really didn't know anything after all. Dear YouTube family, that's all for now. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more parts of this fanfic. Your feedback means the world to me. Thank you for your support, truly grateful. 6 Path Weeb.